Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome back to World of Tanks with the mighty Jingles, where today, for your viewing pleasure, Gortold here is going to be playing the Swedish Tier 5 medium tank, the M42, in a Tier 5 battle, here on the Sound River map. Yes, that's right, a Tier 5 battle. They do actually exist. And I have to confess to a certain fondness for mid-tier battles in World of Tanks, for exactly the same reason that I like battles of any tier in World of Warships. Because in World of Warships, it's theoretically possible for any ship, even a tier 1, to kill any other ship, even a tier 10. That is not something that you can say, at least not with a straight face, in World of Tanks, particularly the higher up the tiers you go. When you get to tier 8, 9, 10... you will often have tanks of the same tier in the same battle that are physically incapable of damaging each other. I'm not saying it doesn't happen at lower tiers. Yes, Panzer IIJ, I am looking at you, and to a lesser degree tanks like the Matilda IV, one of which at least is present in this battle. But it's a lot more rare. Generally speaking, especially down at tier 5 like this. Oh wow, do you see that? All of the individual grains of mica sparkling in the sunlight. Sorry, every now and then I just see something that I haven't seen before when I'm watching one of these replays. Where was I? Oh yes. It's not completely unusual to find yourself in a high tier battle in World of Tanks trying to figure out just exactly which tanks on the enemy team you're even capable of damaging, let alone how you're going to do it. Unless of course you're prepared to put your hand in your pocket, press the 2 key and load the practical alternative to the skill, gold ammunition, which, let's be honest here, gold ammunition is what tier 10 battles are balanced around anyway. But that's not the case down here at tier 5. Everybody is theoretically capable of damaging and killing everybody else, without the need for loading gold ammo. That doesn't mean people don't do it anyway, and it's usually the people driving the tier 5 premiums, but you don't have to. It's not a requirement for success, in the way that it tends to be at tier 10. Another reason why I like tier 5 battles. Oh, nicely done. Nice first kill. Another reason why I like tier 5 battles, as opposed to tier 10 battles, is that if you're looking down the team lists on both teams, most of the tanks actually existed. Not something that's true when you're browsing the team list in a random collection of tanks assigned to whichever tier 10 battle you currently happen to be playing. If you ever feel the urge to witness a collection of a tank designer's vodka-fueled nightmare Franken tanks all together in the same place and the same time, then just pick a random tier 10 tank and hit that random battle button. That is not the case at tier 5. I'm looking down the list of tanks on both teams here, and so far, no, I don't think I can find a single example of a machine that only existed in blueprints. Absolutely everything here was at the very least built, even if it never went into serial production. And that is not something that you can say is true in World of Tanks when you get to tier 8, 9 and particularly tier 10. So there are all kinds of reasons why I do actually like watching mid-tier battles in World of Tanks. Although at the same time, you do kind of have to temper your expectations when it comes to standards of gameplay. And I know you're all sitting there right now thinking, excuse me, have you seen the average standard of gameplay in tier 10 battles in World of Tanks lately? And yes, okay, you do make a valid point. But even so, down here at tier 5, there's an excellent chance that at least some of the opponents that you're facing, because there are some tier 4s in this battle, they may have only installed World of Tanks this morning. There are going to be exceptions, of course. There are always going to be the professional seal clubbers who like to load up, well, the T-67 seems to be a popular alternative, fuel it with nothing but gold and just slaughter noobs all day long. Or you're going to have people who just don't like playing high tier games and prefer playing mid-tier battles like this for all of the reasons that I've already covered. But it doesn't matter which of those two categories your opponent might fall into, because you're playing at tier 5, they're never going to be driving a tank that you cannot kill. You always have a chance, which is not something that you can genuinely say all of the time when you're playing higher up the tiers, particularly tier 10. Another thing that's uncommon at higher tiers, which you may have already noticed, and oh shit, Gortold's getting the crap kicked out of him there, rushing to get into cover, and does take another hit, not good. But another thing that you may have noticed that's equally uncommon in high tiers is that we're almost 5 minutes into this battle, and one team hasn't won yet. Yeah, both teams are still kicking with most of their tanks intact. This is not your typical high-tier 5-minute ruffle stomp. Although, now that Gortol's got himself into this position, I am curious to see how he's planning to get out of it. Although he's not in a bad tank for it, because the M42, while it's not a great tank, it does have a couple of good things going for it. Gun depression, for example, it's got 15 degrees. So he can at least work this spot. Although he's not, you know, this isn't the hold down meta that tends to dominate high tier battles. He can still be hurt. And while he can use this great gun depression to work this ridge, while exposing as little of the tank as possible, what is exposed is vulnerable for longer than is strictly comfortable thanks to this gun's pretty bad 2.5 second aiming time. But again, that's why I like mid-tier tank battles. Nobody's really overpowered. Everybody has a weakness, and everybody can kill everybody else. Be nice if that Excelsior would make a move. I mean, he's the only one over here that has the armour to actually do it, but he appears to have better things to do with his time. So we do have ourselves a little bit of a stalemate here. There is one tank on the team, I believe it's a 14 TP. It's difficult to say because he's outside of radio range, who is attempting... Oh, the Excelsior has just found himself in close quarters battle with an enemy tank. Not that he actually went down there to do anything about those guys, but because one of them just sneaked up behind him. Gorthold does get a successful shot in against the T-67, and unfortunately I think it's a 14 TP, who was attempting to win by capping, and let's face it, it was never going to happen in an encounter battle. You don't win by capping alone. Has just been taken out, as has the Panzer III-4, who was his closest available teammate, and now the enemy team are capping. Although they're not doing it on purpose, there is an enemy tank in the cap circle, but it looks like he was just driving through it in order to get over here where all the fighting is. Well, I say fighting, I mean, there's no progress being made here at all. There are a couple of mediums up ahead of Gorthold here, but they're in worse positions than he is. You can see the Excelsior still sniping from the back of the map, with his best armour in this match, and his mediocre gun with terrible accuracy. The sad thing is, this Excelsior is actually going to do quite well as far as experience is concerned out of this battle, which is only going to reinforce his illusion that he's actually been doing the team good by sitting there, sniping ineffectually for as long as he has. To be completely fair to the Excelsior, he does eventually get his arse into gear. He's not quite as bad as that stereotypical top-tier heavy who sits at the back of the map sniping for the whole game until he's the last one left alive on the team, and then is forced into close combat with a huge number of enemy tanks, all of whom are on low health, thanks to the efforts of the rest of his team, so he's able to rack up an impressive kill score, one-shotting enemy tanks before they finally overwhelm him, and then thinks that he was the one who got let down by everybody else on the team. He is, however, not really using his armour effectively. The Excelsior is a very boxy tank, like the Tiger, and while it does have strong armour, you do kind of have to angle it. None of which he's doing. Oh well, never mind. On the bright side, at least things are happening. If nothing else, he's stirred the pot down there, forcing the enemy tanks on the ridge to at least expose themselves. It's amazing how many shots have bounced off that Panzer 38. Eventually, yay, he's dead. I mean, the M42 does have a pretty good gun. Aside from its horrible aiming time, slow rate of fire. Wow. Yeah, fairly typical heavy tank player. We asked you to push forward. We didn't ask you to drive yourself into a situation where you got yourself surrounded. This is common with battleships in World of Warships as well. There seems to be a thing with battleship players where they're simply unable to accept that there is a middle ground between surfing the map border and charging forward and suiciding. Oh, you complain when I camp at the back and you complain when I push forward. Make your mind up. Dude, there's a middle ground. Figure it out. It's not hard. And, of course, as is always the case, I don't know if you saw it, the Excelsior was just there in chat. GG, morons. Yes, that's right, because it's everybody else's fault that you drove right past a KV-1, let it shoot you in the arse and had to be saved by the artillery. I'm just saying. The Excelsior is extremely quick to judge for a guy with only 416 battles played. Now then, 2 versus 2. Unfortunately, the 2 are a T-67 and a Matilda, both of which are often considered overpowered. The T-67 because it's usually driven by professional seal clubbers loaded with gold. The Matilda because it's a very good tank. It's got strong all-round armour and a high DPM but low alpha damage, rapid-firing 2-pounder gun. But the armour on the Matilda is only really considered overpowered when it's top tier, and today it isn't. While he did bounce the second shot, the friendly artillery is a fair, and it loads faster than most medium tanks, so that just leaves the T-67, who of course is almost certainly a professional seal clubber because he's driving a T-67 and he's firing gold. If I were to tell you, for example, that the T-67 driver has more than 30,000 battles played, most of which are at tiers 5 and 6, and has over 1,000 battles played in the T-67 alone, are there any among us who would genuinely be able to put their hand on their heart and say, without lying, that they were shocked and stunned by that revelation? Nobody? No, I didn't really think so, but I felt that I had to ask the question. I'm not saying any of that makes him a bad person. You've got to find your enjoyment in this shitty world any way that you can. But I'm not saying it's surprising either. I'll tell you what is surprising. What on earth is the artillery doing? I mean, Gortold is saying, look, tell me when you're in position. So, if, you know, the T-67 takes him out when he breaks cover, the artillery can possibly kill him and win the match. Well, what is the army doing? He started over here. And from over there, he was able to hit the last reported position of the T-67 without any problems. So, okay, maybe the T-67's fallen back and he's moving up to provide additional coverage. That makes sense, I get it. But he's not in the fastest machine in the game, and there's only 3 minutes of this battle left. And he's still moving, so he still hasn't found the position that he feels comfortable in. But he needs to get a move on, or at least talk to somebody, because Gortold is starting to get, I mean, it's possible that English isn't his first language. In fact, it's the EU server. It's extremely likely that English isn't his first language, but, you know, that's what quick commands are for. Come on, get with the program. It's good to say that they have at least had the foresight to join a battlefield platoon. I mean, there's no crucial contribution up for grabs, but they could still get a brothers in arms. This has got to be a butt-clenching moment for Gortold. I mean, he has Sixth Sense, so he'll know when he's been spotted. But the thing is, Sixth Sense only tells you that you've been spotted 3 seconds after you've been spotted, and the T-67 can shoot and kill you in that time. And the arty's still moving. Dude, take a firing position. You're close enough. 2 minutes remaining. And the arty is still dithering around. Does the arty think he's going to be able to win by capping? I mean, it's a ridiculous idea. This is an encounter battle. It takes 3 minutes, and there aren't 3 minutes left, for a single tank to win by capping. But that doesn't mean that's not what he's thinking. I mean, it's... Just because it's stupid doesn't mean that it's not what your teammate is planning to do. Well, Gortold doesn't really have any choice at this point. Hopefully, the arty can at least provide a distraction, even if he can't provide any supporting firepower. They really do have to go for it. This does, of course, mean that they're playing straight into the hands of the T-67, because he is going to spot them first. It all depends on, well, you know, how much experience of seal clubbing the T-67 has gathered in his more than 1,000 games in the T-67. So yeah, the odds are not good. He's likely to be in a good spot, making full advantage of his superior view range and camo, while these guys don't have that advantage because they're on the move. Oh well, fingers crossed. Let's see what happens. I think the arty is actually going for the cap. You know, there's less than a minute left, right? In fact, there's only 30 seconds left. Let's just hope the T-67 sees the artillery first, because the arty isn't going to kill him. 20 seconds. Is this going to be a draw? Has the T-67 just run off to hide? No, he's shooting at the arty. And has remained unspotted while doing so. Where the hell did he... There he is. He's killed the arty. Oh. Shots out. Oh. Well. Didn't see that one coming. I thought it might be a draw because the T-67 had run off to hide in the corner of the map. So, not the result I was expecting, because the T-67 didn't run off to hide in the corner of the map, and yet at the same time, exactly the result I was expecting, because it ended in a draw. Just not in the way I thought it was going to. So, today's video, a great example of why I love mid-tier battles in World of Tanks, and as well as the reasons that we've already covered, there's the fact that it's next to impossible to determine which team is going to win or lose just from looking at the loading screen. Not something that you can say is equally true of a tier 10 battle. When you're staring at the team list and you realise that the enemy team have a pair of Object 705As and 2 EBRs and your team doesn't, yep, you've already lost. And also, in a tier 5 battle, it is next to impossible to lose money, regardless of how badly you do. By contrast, in a tier 10 battle, it's next to impossible to make money, regardless of how well you do, even if you are running a premium account. So, yeah. Hope you enjoyed today's battle. I hope it's given you all something to think about. My commiserations to Gortold for the result, but it was an entertaining battle to watch. And as always, take care, stay safe, and I'll catch you next time.